All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talk That Talk. We're here with my boy Alex and Adriel. Hey, guys. All
What's going
right.
on?
Hey, hey,
So what up, what up, what
hey.
up?
And happy belated birthday, Alex.
Appreciate it, appreciate it, appreciate it.
Woo! Balloons, balloons.
As you can tell, today I was a little late because I'm still recovering from a 4-day hangover.
Oh, I feel that. I feel that. Vibes.
You don't
All
recover the
right.
same way as
You sure don't. I can tell you my birthday was, whew, yeah, exactly. But we are here to talk about Late Night with the Devil. I'm so excited for this one, guys, because y'all know how I feel about horror movies. And this one is not your typical horror movie. It's actually, to me, like horror slash comedy. It actually stars David Dash Schmalshin. I
you're gonna
cannot
be
announce
struggling
his
with that
name.
all
I'm
video. Bear with us.
struggling with his name. So if you guys hear me struggle, just roll with it. But this movie is directed by the Australian brothers. They go by the names of Cameron and Colin. Is it Carnes? Carnes? Carnes. Yeah.
Sure.
Cairns? I'm
Karen's?
not really sure, but this will
I
be
don't know.
their first theatrical debut. This movie is beautifully shot. It takes place, it's basically about the Schmalshin's character. He is basically wanting to reboost his ratings for his TV show Night Owls. It actually takes place on a Halloween night in 1977. What I love about this movie the most is that it's kind of almost like a long shot movie. So this takes place only on Halloween night, and I love that the way they shot it was almost like there are like no breaks. It's like really watching a TV show, but being in it and being behind the scenes. I absolutely love that. So let's go ahead and get into it, guys. What are your
Yeah.
pros on
I'll
this
just start it
movie?
off being it fresh in my head because I was literally the last one to possibly watch this at the last possible time. Appreciate you guys waiting for me. I actually appreciated it because I
You're
got to
good.
watch this movie and I thought it was really good. One of the key takeaways is just say David D, his character Jack Delroy. The whole late night aspect was really shown for those of us that like Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, maybe James Corden for those of you out there that like him. For those that like late night shows, like you got the whole aspect of like bringing guests in, having like audience members interact and all that stuff. That aspect, I was really looking forward to that music performance at the end that we didn't get, but we got a different ending that was kind of more impactful. I would have loved like an outro with music playing. That would have been like more on spot. Yeah, the whole aspect of Jack Delroy's character, his development from the beginning of like easing into believing in superstitions enough, talking about being an open mind, and then finally to the climax scene where everything's taking place in stage and behind the scenes. We got to see all aspects of it. Nothing was left to interpretation, just for the most part, until the end, all our answers were answered for the most part.
So for me, I think that this movie did a lot of good things. That would the run time of it, I felt it was really good. 93 minutes long, short and compact. Short, sweet, to the point. One of the biggest things I think I like too from the start, it was a great intro, great world building to everything that's going on. Leading up to
Adriel.
Dave's character Jack. Like why is he so important to this movie? With all the killings that are kind of going on during the 1970s, as well as the paranormal wave that is going in. They're trying to capitalize on that with the late night talk shows. Then obviously his drive to be number one, kind of the influence for the rest of the movie. Wow. So like you said, like takes place on Halloween night. So they're trying to do anything because it is the uh sweeps week, right? So that's where the biggest ratings, it's where they want to get the highest ratings for the shows. So they can
Yeah.
try to jump, try to get there. I think one thing that this movie did really good was really play into like I said, everything that they had set up in the beginning. They kind of like really intertwined that inside the movie. So like one part that I really liked that they did. So and when they were setting up the movie, or talking about how this paranormal wave is going on and everything else. And then when that guy, the character's name is, I can't think of it right now, but the guy who's the critic or the naysayer, he,
Carmichael.
yeah, so he name drops the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren. famous, what are they? I don't even know what to call them, just like witch hunters or ghost hunters, I guess.
Hmm.
Obviously what made them more, or not, I don't want to say made them because, they have a lot of cases, but with the first thing that comes to people's mind is the Conjuring movies. So, Ed and Lorraine. So the fact that they name dropped it, again, world building, kept bringing it all together. So it was really well. I think all that was really well put
Yes.
together. David did a really good job. He really did feel like a TV host. He had that 70s camp kind of
Yes.
down to a T. He was just someone who was trying to more or less do what he had to do to kind of grind out the views for his show to kind of get number one. And then even with like, I think they purposely try to make the visual effects and everything that was kind of going on feel like it's actually set from the 70s. So I think I appreciated that a little more with like the way anytime something paranormal would happen, like the way the static in the camera was, like it didn't just feel like they just threw that in. Like it kind of felt like it was from like a film camera or, things like that. Or even when there was like electrical stuff that was going on, the way it looked seemed very like as you would see it through like a TV set that was from that era. So I think they did a very good job with like the set design and everything else that kind of goes into everything like that. So I think it was a very well put together movie along with like a very
Yes.
good script. And then the way the actors that they got, because I felt like the young lady who played Lily, I think she did a really good job with just facial expressions and like how she was able to kind of convey like that she's actually, being possessed by somebody else or her body is housed by somebody else because like the
Yeah.
way she would like slowly turn to something or the way she would speak or whatever the case was, I felt like she did a very good job acting, not just like, delivering lines, but her facial expressions and everything else were on point. But yeah, I think that's pretty much, the list that I have for my pros.
Absolutely. I agree with everything you guys said, especially Adriel, you are hitting it, okay? I definitely can agree. I definitely love the 1970s aesthetic of it because I think that I'm really big on, can these movie makers, can they actually make you feel like you're in that time, right? Because sometimes they'll make it kind of seem like that, but you're not really in it. And this one really felt like you were on set of a 1970s late night show, right? Even down to the audience and how
Right.
they interacted and having that live audience. That was really awesome. I definitely want to touch on, just so we won't be repetitive, I definitely want to touch on the occult. I'm kind of like a conspiracy theorist already. So I kind of love that they kind of like touched on that like occult kind of like, almost like the Illuminati. Is it real? They didn't exactly make it
Yeah.
like the Illuminati. It was a little bit more stranger than that. And I think that's what really captured
Yeah.
me because it was like they had like they were dressed in like those owl suits. And it's like, what the fuck is this? Especially in the beginning when they had them like all in a circle, they were floating in the water together. So in the beginning, you're just like, what the hell is this? And then by the time you actually get to the end, you're just like, oh my gosh, what in the hell? I definitely want to point out as well, another thing is the infamous hypnosis scene. I absolutely love that scene. It's something about just having that good old fashioned gruesome, like with the prosthetics. Shout out to whoever did the prosthetics and the makeup on that. Awesome. Like, I absolutely love that. It was so funny to see all those worms coming out of him. And then next thing you know, he just exploded. That shit was like super, super crazy. Even like the last kill scene, I love that shot. It's something about, I love when they kind of save like what is it, like the best for last. It almost gives me that feel like you could tell they did their homework. Because one thing that I loved was, I don't know where their inspiration came from. I feel like it might have been taken away from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Quentin Tarantino as a director, because if anyone's ever seen that movie, it's very much like this. You're kind of like leading up to that famous, infamous last like kill shot. I know a lot of people hate movies like that. It feels slow, it feels boring, but it's almost like what Alex says, you kind of need that like character development. So you kind of like get attached. So by the time you get to that last little, you're like, oh, I want
Yeah.
this to happen. You know what I mean? And I kind of felt that way because
Yeah.
I kind of got over the naysayer. I was sick of him kind of like always challenging them. Why do you have to challenge everything? There's proof right in front of you, but he just
Yeah.
couldn't be convinced. And then by the end, what happened? She blew his ass up. She made him like simultaneously combust. That was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any cons for this movie,
Yeah, dope.
guys?
I'll go first because I don't think I have too many, so I feel like my list can go pretty quick. Although I said like one of my pros was the world building of the movie, I felt like they kind of stuck with that a little bit too long. Like I felt like when the video was there, like in the beginning when they rolled it out, I got it. Like, okay, cool. It was I get what you're doing. I get why he's there. You're tying it into the real world. Okay, cool. You could have left it at that. But I felt like they unnecessarily kind of put like this longer thing of like, okay, he was kind of getting close to the top, and then he took like a big downfall, and this is his last ditch effort to kind of get back. I think they
Yeah.
could have just shortened it, where if they could have even just said it, and then it would have been good. So I felt like them, even though like I said, it was good world building, I felt they just stuck on that a little too long. The second point that I had was, so I watched it twice. There's a lot of things that I caught on the second watch that I didn't really catch like on the first watch, like the first watch that I had. But it also made me more confused. So when they introduced Christo, like I was like, okay, I bought it. Like he's like a little bit, he's like a medium, and then he has some type of connection to the dead, and he kind of missed the first one, nailed the second one, and then when he kind of like connected to Minnie, his eyes rolled in the back of the head, and I was like, "Oh, he this dude's for real." Like it's like they got like a good, like they sold it. But then
Mhm.
later on, they reveal in the movie that his assistant did like a questionnaire in the lobby, and she was asking the family questions, and then
Yep.
so he was like basically a fake. And then even when he threw up, that was like actually part of his act, because that's something that Jack says later on to his producer that was part of his act, but then he really dies from it. So like it was
Yeah.
like kind of real, so it wasn't. But I guess what the whole point I was trying to make was the events of the show, was it all fake or was it all real? Like it was like it walks that line a little too finely, because I'm just like, especially with the way it ends, is like, was the demon showing them those things because he was part of the cult? And then now, because he was part of the cult, this is what he needed. This was his biggest sacrifice.
Mhm.
But did he kill the girl? And like, because he killed the girl, is he going to get everything he wanted? Or is him trying to get to everything he wanted not going to take away everything because he's going to be in prison? So like, I don't know. I felt like there was a lot of questions that it threw at me that I was like, I didn't really understand. But so there was that part of it. And then I also thought that even though every act built off the previous act, and it kind of got stronger, I felt like the whole third act of this movie completely saved the movie. Like up until when Lily and the doctor started talking on the stage, when they actually like let out the demon, I felt like everything kind of up to that was really, even though it was like a shorter movie, it was slow paced until that point. And then once that point got there, it like took off, and that's when it like really grabbed my attention. But at that point, there was like 30 minutes left of the movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just felt like it could have been stronger, you know? So that were my gripes with the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just piggyback on your first statement about it try to do that world building thing too hard. One of the things I hate with movies that have narration in the beginning is, like, they keep the narrating going for a little too long, and I was like, "You coulda just got to the point, like you said what you needed to say." And then when we go into the whole science exorcism video, now we get another narration to explain all of Lily's backstory, and I was like, "Okay, you could have just said, like, a quick synopsis of what was gonna go on in the movie in this one. You didn't need to show me the little horror scream at the end of the radio call or whatever. Like, I didn't need any of that to know that this girl's probably gonna be demonic. So as far as narration goes, I feel like they did a little too much of it, which kinda, like, dragged on, which made the movie a little bit boring. And then there were scenes that were, like, a little too predictable to me. Not to be that guy that says I know it all, or, like, I could just pick apart a movie of what's gonna happen next. One of the biggest scenes I knew was gonna be like a JK scene, was the hypnosis scene where he made everyone look into it, made sure all the cameras got onto it, and made sure Jack looked at it. I was all like, "Okay, he's gonna hypnotize everyone, and he's gonna make it look really scary and, like, really demonic, and it's gonna be like, JK, this isn't really happening." And the dead giveaway of that scene, like, for sure, was like, "Oh, yeah, you're bleeding, right?" And then I was like, "Oh my god, this like, he hypnotized everyone, I know for a fact." And I was like and then I got all the worms, and I was like, "Dude, you're not doing this." And then especially when he wasn't tripping about the worms and stuff until, like, he like, "Oh, I can't stop this." And then I was like, "Oh, yeah, that was way too predictable." And then just to, like my interpretation of the ending was that he wanted to be the number 1 viewed show against, like, Jimmy Carter, I believe, and every other late night show. Like, he wanted to have the number 1 view show during this night where all the views counted. Um, and so the synopsis at the end was that he sold his wife's soul and potentially his own to get everything he ever wanted, but at what cost, you know, like that Thanos thing. What did it cost you? Everything. Like, um, yeah, and then it's just like when we were going through those scenes at the end, like I was like, I get it. Like you're trying to like show how he came up to this point by reliving like what we literally saw in the beginning, and then throwing in some of that what do you call it, the Bohemian Grove aspect of being in the redwoods, that little cult aspect, and then finally he's like, "Oh, you know what you have to do." As soon as I saw that, I was like, "All right, he's gonna shank her, and it's gonna be someone else that he's shanking."
Yeah, I knew that right
Um,
away too.
like, as soon as I was like, yeah," so conveniently, he has the knife that's supposed to, like,
On the
sacrifice
set.
someone,
Yeah.
and I was like, that was a dead giveaway. I was hoping that for a different ending, but I'll get to that on, like, my final takes, but, like, as far as I think the movie was a little too predictable for me. It was short and concise, but it was like, "Alright, I'm getting like they're rushing a lot of stuff to me, but they took a lot of time doing the exposition through the narration that I'm getting a lot of what's gonna happen in this next scene."
Right. And I think I have to agree with everything you guys are saying because in all honesty, I think my biggest con was just that there was a little bit too much of the narration and there's a little bit too much of the touching on the actual like occult part of it as well. It was almost like that last final scene that was really extra. I felt like that also went on longer than it needed to. Like they could have cut that really short and added a little bit more of some of the, I don't know, like the actual exorcism or what have you, or the actual possession of Lily, right? I would have rather have seen that. I would have rather her been kind of taken over a little bit longer because that was really short. Like we didn't have enough of that. But everything else you guys said, I do agree with. Just because I don't want to keep re-saying, the same thing, but I definitely agree with that, guys,
Yeah.
for sure. Yep. So, what are our final thoughts of this movie in general?
I'll say that we all are gonna have, like, a similar take on a lot of it because this is one of the shortest films that we're reviewing.
Yeah.
So it's, like, short and concise, so it's kinda hard to have different opinions about this movie. Probably just a different feeling. Like, I was telling Adriel before we started watching, I was like, "This isn't my type of movie to watch," but I really appreciated watching it because it's, like, gives me a different aspect of filmography. One of the things I liked at the end was kind of like one of my favorite movies of all time is, like, Inception, where he spins the little dial to see if he's awake or not, and he was at the end saying, dreamer, wake up," to, like, try to get himself out of the hypnosis thing to see, oh, is it him in a hypnosis state, or did he really just kill everyone? And then when it cuts off screen of, like, it being the end of the show and all that stuff, it gave me, like, Blair Witch vibes, like, "Oh, is this, like, a cutted version of it?" Obviously, it's a little more on the nose where you could tell it's like a movie instead of like the Blair Witch Project where you're like, "Yo, this might actually be like a home video that got edited in." Um, so it's like that aspect, I really appreciated it. But yeah, like I said, we're probably gonna have similar thoughts about this movie, short and concise, so what
Yeah.
are your guys'
So
final
I
thoughts?
think some of my final thoughts I think will be overall, I feel like it was a well put together movie, well written. Like I said, small hiccups, but I feel like the rewatchability of this movie is really, really good because of how short it is. Even though like there are those key moments that kind of drag, overall, I feel like this is one of those movies that I think down the road that I'll kind of rewatch, which is kind of refreshing for kind of some of the movies that we've been watching lately.
Yeah.
But I don't know, they're except for what it was for this directors being their first, I guess like in all intents and purposes, their directorial
Yeah.
debuts, I feel like it hit pretty well. But also, I can also see why it had the limited run it had in the theaters, because I think it's one of those ones where it's either going to be you like it a lot and like it did work really well for you, or it didn't really do anything for you. It didn't move the needle. So I feel like they put it out there to see how it went. Right now, there's still, a positive vibe around it. So it's like, I think now it's going to kind of revert back to, I think in 2021 when Everything Everywhere All at Once came out, when it really was driven off of the word of mouth that really drove people to go watch it, which then returned them to re-release it in the movies, which I think that's something that they were kind of banking on, was like, we'll put it out, we'll get a filler out for it. If it's good, we'll re-release it when, people are actually wanting for it. But all in all, like I said, I think, as a final thought, I think it was a good movie all around.
Yeah, well, just so what you said, it highlighted something in my thing. If you guys actually look at the cover screen of, like, the actual movie title, it looks like a playbill, and then that I think, like, that's part of the marketing thing, right? You don't really get markets for, like, plays gonna be out on, like, at the Pantages and all that stuff. You don't really get that outside of, like, Disney on Ice or, like, Shrek movies, right? Or Shrek the Musical. Maybe the best, like, musical that we had in a while was Hamilton, but even that one didn't get as much hype on, like, movie theaters and all that stuff, and that's why I felt like I didn't really know about this movie until Kia mentioned it to us, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I did see it," but I didn't really know about it, like, it wasn't promoted through any of the ads I seen, no one was really talking about it until that little week or 2 of it being out, and people was like, "Oh, you gotta go watch it, it's really good," and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I'll probably wait until it gets onto streaming," but I saw how short it was, and I was like, "Oh, this is, like, one of those movies that I was like, there's gonna be too many showtimes to try to fill up because it's so short. Like, most movies are like a 2.5 hour span, so that's like, what, like 8 to 10 viewings compared to if it's an hour and a half, you're gonna have to fill up literally like 20 spots of viewings for this one movie. So it's kinda hard to spread that out within, like, those amount of weeks, especially if you're not getting the clientele to come into those movies to watch it. So short movies are unfortunately gonna suffer unless you're like a kid movie that kids are gonna wanna watch it, like, every single week and
Yeah,
every single day of the
absolutely.
week. Um,
I love that. Yeah. I think my overall final thought is same as Adriel. This is a good like rewatch for me. Like I will rewatch it, but there will be a specific time. I always put together like my little like Halloween movie list, and this is going on it. I actually really like this. Yeah, I
yep,
think this will be a
I got
great
that.
like background movie if I'm having like my little miniature Halloween like get-togethers. I think that overall though, like you guys said, because it's such a short running movie, it almost feels more of like a, I don't know, it almost feels like, I don't know, like this honestly probably could have been more of a series than a movie, almost like an introductory phase into
Yeah,
like a series. Yeah,
on, like,
absolutely.
a Twilight Zone type feel,
Yeah,
or was that Black Book or something? What's
exactly.
that one that's on
Exactly.
Netflix?
Black
Exactly.
Mirror.
Black Mirror,
Exactly.
yeah.
Like
It
that's
could have been a
exactly
Black
where
Mirror
I'm at
episode,
with
not like,
it.
"Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
this is gonna be the
So
episode of Black Mirror."
overall, to go
yeah.
ahead and
It was
wrap
really
things
good.
up,
Like I said, it wasn't
guys, what
my
are
type
our
of movie to
final
watch,
ratings?
and just,
Start
like,
with
by our point at the
Alex.
end where it's like I said, it could have been, like, a show, an episode on, like, Black Mirror or something. I can't really put it on, like, a cinematic level, so I'd probably give it, like, a 6.8, maybe a high 7 in my opinion. It was good, but it wasn't, like I said, my type of movie or anything that made me want to go to the theaters to watch this again. Like, I'm not in my like, watching it at home, I wasn't like, "Oh, I should have watched this in theaters." Like, if I saw Godzilla at home, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I gotta go watch this in theaters." Like, that's how I'm trying to separate it right now. This is something like I said, I saw it until it came on streaming services, and it looked like a streaming service type of movie, show, episode. So, 6.8, maybe 7.
So I'm really glad you said that too, because I honestly thought you were gonna kind of lowball it a little bit,
Yeah,
but I feel like I really enjoyed it. Like I said, even though there was a couple cons, in there that kind of took away from me. Like I said, the third act was way better than the first two acts, even though it kind of did build up into it.
yeah.
I still think, for me personally, anyways, I know me and Alex kind of talked about this backstage, but I feel for me, this was like the second best movie that I've watched this year. Godzilla still reigns supreme. You know,
Screonk.
like I, and then also for me, for when I actually sit down and think about when I'm reviewing the movie, the biggest, or I'm not gonna say the biggest, but one of the key factors for me when I'm rating it is the rewatchability factor. And the fact that I feel like, oh, okay, I can definitely, like you said, fit it into my Halloween, routine, or on a day that I have nothing else to watch, I can like pop it on or whatever. So for that, I feel like it bumped it up a little bit higher. So for me, for being my number two movie of the year, I feel like it's gonna be a solid 7. Could be a 7.2, 3, but I feel like solid. I think it is a 7 overall.
Yeah,
7 out of 10.
definitely. And I'm gonna have to jump in with you guys. I think we're all one and the same right now because I give it a
Yeah.
7 out of 10 as well. But I do agree
Yeah,
with Adriel. It just is to me, as far as the rewatchability, I would rewatch this. However, like I said, it is for a specific like genre or season for me. So I would probably just pop this on during Halloween, probably be like a good little background movie while I'm cooking or something, just to kind of get like the
Yeah.
vibes going. I might even I would probably even chime this in with how I like to do like all of my kind of like conjuring like series, only because it has kind of that aspect in it and it would fit kind of in with that since they did
yeah,
mention, Lorraine Warren, and that was just kind of like, okay, this kind of feels like, they're kind of like putting it with that, but we'll never know. But yeah, 7 out of 10 for me, guys. That's it. Right now, I think, in all honesty, too, I don't even know what my top movie is. I will say, though, like, I watched Dune like 3 times this year. So obviously, I must like Dune, too. Even though that shit is long. Like, it's almost a 3 hour
yeah.
movie. Jeez. And then Godzilla would be number two. That one's a really good movie. Like, really, really good. But yeah, this one, 7 out of 10. That's it. All right. What? Don't you shut
That's
up.
not to trip you guys out, but I have IMDb. No, I have
Oh my
IMDb open
gosh.
and
We're done.
literally have it ranked 7 out of 10. No, hold up. The movie is based in 1977, and the total minutes runtime is an hour and 33. But if you add 1, 3, 3 together,
What the?
it's 7.
Okay.
I was just like, I was getting tripped out right now. I was like, no way.
All right. And on that note, that wraps this episode of Talk That Talk this evening. Again, give it up for Adriel and Alex, and of course, your girl Kia. Everyone, have a good night, and thank you again.